Hey folks, welcome back to Chris White Africa and Daba Africa. This is Chris. Yeah, that was my sister a short while ago, probably about 45 minutes ago. She called to let me know that she'd received a call from the hospice. My mother passed away about an hour ago. So, August 1945 to December of 2020. I don't know why that's not showing up. Let me try to fix that, folks. I just thought I'd try to use a little bit of this time to pay a bit of a tribute to my mother. And I don't know why the color's not coming out there. Let me see if I can get that fixed really quickly. Color's not coming out right on that font. I don't know why. Let's try red and see what happens. That's still not coming out right. I just delete that thing, so I'll delete that. So anyway, folks, yeah. But anybody there? Nobody's there. Am I transmitting? I don't know. Anyway, I don't see anybody there. Nobody's commenting. Bullets for Teeth. Condolences. Oh, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. For some reason, I'm not seeing any. Oh, that's his top chat. That's why, not live chat. Okay. Bullets for Teeth. Well, thank you very much for that, Bullets for Teeth. I appreciate that. That looks like a V for Vengeance mask you have on there. Respect. Love it. Love the V for Vengeance stuff. So let me see if I can do this again very quickly. Okay, thanks. Thanks for letting me know. Let me get here. Something. Why is this not letting me pick? This thing is really annoying. Something's going on with. There we go. Okay. Give me a second here, folks. I just got to fix this. Sorry about this. This should have been done before I went on air, but didn't work out right. This is embarrassing. Sorry. Didn't mean to do this fashion, folks. But anyway, so let me get this set up here. This should be bold. Okay. Arial black. There we go. Regular. Okay. Just change Arial, and then bold. All right. Well, that's good enough. The white. That keeps happening. Sorry, folks. I'm just distracted by this nonsense. Trying to get this to work. There we go. Just trying to get somewhere you guys can see it. So that's this is kind of a tribute to my mom. Very quickly, I just pulled a few quick photos. I don't have a lot of photos on this computer, but I brought a few up just to show you a little bit of her life, just to kind of respect for her. Was born in August 1945, passed away today, December 7th, 2020. So there you go. So thanks, Erica. Right, so let's get started here. So here's a pic of my mom when she was a kid. Yeah, look at that. Didn't even know they had color photographs back then. Yeah, that must be a colorized one. That's in the late 50s there. Yeah, that's my mom. Yep. Anyway, so yeah, anyway, so yeah, no, my mom and I have the same look. Was 6 feet tall, and I'm 6'2". Had that in common. Had that same face. Yeah, absolutely. You see that in my photographs as a kid. Looked a lot like my mother. So yeah, got the wave. I didn't ever realize that. Get the wave going there. Never realized my mama had that because most of her life she didn't have that wave. Anyway, so this is a picture of her back in the late 1950s in school. So one of the school photographs. I don't know what she's got on her shirt there, but it looks kind of, I don't know, like sheep or something on there, or puppies. I'm not sure which, but yeah, that's her back in the 50s. So all right, let's switch to another one here. That's my mother and my father. Yep, that's my mother and my father. Yep, that's one of those photograph booth photos. You know, you jump in the photograph and you pull the curtain and you take that picture. There, she doesn't have the wavy hair there. She's got it all pulled back, which is kind of strange. But almost the same hairline. Look at that, almost the same hairline. Yep. Anyway, so there you go, folks. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Thanks for the likes. Kind of a tribute to my mom who just passed away. Yep. Born in English Council, Maryland, which is just below Baltimore. Passed away in Lancaster, Ohio. Right, so that was my father who passed away 2 years ago. And then here's the next one here. Let's get that one off there. Now, there's both my parents. That's 66. These are a little bit out of order here. I like this because you can see how tall my mother was and look how skinny she was. It's how she was almost her entire life, in front of a Ford. That's with my father in July of 1966. I was a year and a half old, approaching 2 years old at that stage. But somehow I didn't make it in that photograph. Yeah, that's my mom and my father in July of 1966, folks. That's a long time ago. Anyway, yeah, so that's that one. And that's my mother and I, by best accounts, when I was a newborn. By all accounts, that's me, based on what we found out. And look how baggy the pants are on my mother and the shirt. Yep, she was very young there when I was born. Yep, so that's a long time ago. That's definitely my mother and I. That's me almost 2 years of age in Birmingham, Alabama. Birmingham, Alabama. Cute baby indeed. I was a dead sexy baby. I got some good photographs of me as a child, but I was just trying to put pictures of my mother and I in here. So that's my mother and I in Birmingham, Alabama, the one and only time I went to see my grandfather. Would you believe it? I actually have memories of this trip. I actually have memories of this trip. We went to Alabama to see my grandfather, who was a pilot, and that's my mom and I. Wow. Wow. Look at that big hair. Yep. Anybody else going to comment? Or is it just Erica? Anyway, so let's go to the next one here. This is my all-time favorite photograph of my mom. She's got some better photographs, but this is kind of my mom and her free spirit. This is the 1970s during the CB craze. This is in Pennsylvania. And notice she's got the dyed hair there, and she's got that bob, that kind of, I don't know, kind of like the Jennifer Aniston look, but before Jennifer Aniston. She's got a jacket on with all kinds of patches for truckers and stuff. She got her hands tucked in under the shirt there. I think this is one of those rest stop things we did where you provide free coffee and drinks for truckers when they stop along, or for travelers, roadside rest things. I don't even know if people do this anymore. I think they still do it in Pennsylvania in some of the places, but we lived in Lackawanna County up there in Scranton, Pennsylvania. It's one of my all-time favorite photographs of my mom. That determined look on her face. Yeah. Yeah, it's a cool picture. That's a cool picture. She got a ladies' watch on, not one of those men's watches on. And you take a look at that. Look at those hips and look at those legs. She had a good build to her. My mother, her whole life, she was a good-looking woman. There's my mother when she married my second stepfather, Fred Bennett. And I don't recall which wedding this was because they got married several times. They sort of seem to make a hobby of it, getting married repeatedly. I suspect this might have been 1979 in Las Vegas, or it was after that. So at this time, she would have been 40, 50. She would have been 30 something. So 45 to 85, 75, 30. She would have been almost 40 years old here. Yeah, 35. Yeah, 30. Yeah, is that 30? 55, 65, 75. Oh, she was 35. I'm sorry, about 35 right here. Yep. 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 And then her first bout with cancer came about almost 10 years after. It's 1987. When I was getting out of the Army, I came back to Ohio. My mother told me she had breast cancer, and she had treatment for that. Then within a year, she had ovarian cancer and had a hysterectomy as a consequence. And then from 1988 until 2018, for 30 years, she didn't have any cancer. She was cancer-free, but she continued to smoke her entire life. It's a habit she couldn't kick. And Fred was 6 feet 5 inches tall. He was taller than me. And you can see my mother. She was 6 feet tall. She did pretty good keeping up with him there. So, and then there she is, driving a semi truck. Yeah, my mom was really into the trucking thing, starting in the mid 1970s. With CB radios, it was all the rage. You know, so when we did the Friday show, I played Wolf Creek Pass, and we had ourselves a convoy. Hey, Big Pen, this here's a rubber duck. What's your 10-4? Roger. Keep your ears on. Yeah, that was the time. I was the Baltimore Kid. That was my handle on the CB radio. I had my own CB license. My mom had me into it. We're really big. Look at that truck. Look how ancient it is. Look at that dashboard and how little space there is. My mom was 6 feet tall. She barely fits in that semi. These days, those things are Gucci luxury things with nice sleeper beds. That one had a sleeper bed. Yeah, but that's my mom. She used to drive truck as well. She did it for a while. So, hey, Cameron, welcome to you. Wilhelm Janssen von Rensburg, thank you very much. Boom Shakalaka, thank you. Bullets for Teeth, thank you. Lezan, thank you, everybody, for your comments. But yeah, my mom was tall. Check out those thin legs, man. I got the same legs. Yep. So this one here. This is a photograph of my aunts and uncles who were surviving. This is from 1999. It's my Uncle Tommy sitting in the front there in the wheelchair. He was the first to go. So let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them. There had been like 13, and that's what's left. So my Uncle Tommy is the first to go. And then my mother's in the middle. So from Uncle Tommy, going backwards from the left-hand side, that's Aunt Trudy, Aunt Dot, Aunt Margie, and then Uncle Larry in the back row, and then my mom, and Melvin, who's passed away, and Uncle Stanley on the right there. Yep. Only a few of them still left. Margie's still alive. Trudy's still alive. Stan's still alive. But Mom has passed. Larry went young. Tommy was the eldest. He went first. Yep. 1999. Took this picture. Yep. That's a long time ago. And this was for her birthday this year in August when my sister and my brother, that's my sister Jennifer on the left, my brother Brian on the right, when they had a birthday celebration for her. You can see her that even though she was getting up there in years, she's, by the way, the T-shirt says Pelosi for prison. In case you're wondering what my mom's T-shirt says, it says Pelosi for prison. Great sense of humor to the end. No doubt about it. Great sense of humor to the end. I'm no regrets in traveling up there just a few weeks ago. It was the right decision. She was still lucid and well enough that she knew I was present, enjoyed my presence, and it was good for her that she saw me. So all three of us have been up there. Of course, Jennifer spent the most time with her because she lives in Lancaster and was with her throughout. So much respect for my sister. You can see that's August. Here it is December. When it hit, it came quickly, and the end came. So she was suffering. So it's probably the best thing. Pelosi for prison. Yeah, bullets. She was. Yeah, absolutely. Great sense of humor. Hey, Hank. Appreciate it. And then this here. This is, I didn't take any pictures with my mom because she was really emaciated in the hospital. I have a photograph, but I'm not going to show that to the public. But this is last year. Went up there for Thanksgiving in November. Went before Thanksgiving to beat the snow and beat the rush. And that's me. My mom, who was already a bit short. You can see her bent in the knees there, but she looks about 3 or 4 inches shorter than me. It's because she's bent in the knees a little bit. That's my nephew and my sister, and that's her son. You can see he's taller than her. So he obviously got that from his grandmother. And then, so it's Jennifer, it's my mom, myself, and Denver. Yeah, there you go. So that was in Lancaster, Ohio last year, wearing a Columbus Blue Jackets sweatshirt there. And it was up in Columbus last year. So there you go. Good morning, Strong Together. Welcome here, Rodell. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Anyway, so, yeah. So there you go. So that's, I think, the last picture I took together with my mom. That was last year, yeah. She wasn't really fit to be taking a picture when I got to see her this year. So, I mean, wouldn't have been cool. Yeah, so that just would have been selfish just for me to have a picture with her when she didn't look so good. But she still looked pretty good there last year. So, yeah, I need to let her trucker buddies know. And I'll do this really quickly. Sorry about that. I just realized that. Let me find this stuff very quickly. Yeah. Sorry, folks. Just need to send this. Anyway, so I just sent him a note. The trucking folks really like my mom, so they'll appreciate that. Anyway, yeah, so there you go. So let me take that one off. Yeah, folks, that's my mom from Maryland. Lived all over the country. She did not live a boring life, I'll tell you that. She led an interesting life. I'll have to give her that credit for that. She did things her way, certainly ahead of her time in many respects. I mean, I had a father and 2 stepfathers, and my mom did what she wanted, when she wanted, and the way she wanted. We lived in California when I was a kid. She worked in a grocery store. I think I've told this story to some folks before. And we had moved all the way across the country. My father had taken a mail truck and converted it into a camper. This is back before you could get Winnebagos and stuff like that. They probably had them, but we probably couldn't afford it. We moved all the way across from Maryland to the West Coast, across the country one way, stopping, living in some place for a while, and eventually living in California. And that's where I experienced my first earthquake. My mother, this was the late 1960s. I was a small child. And my mother, she was working in a grocery store. And then one day the cops came and then to the grocery store and they interviewed all the employees. And my mother got interviewed and we left shortly after that. We moved away. And I was always curious about why they came and interviewed her. And it turns out that my mother worked for the LaBiancas. That's the couple that were murdered by the Charlie Manson clan. The LaBiancas. Remember, Sharon Tate was murdered, but also the LaBiancas were murdered too. Lino and his wife were murdered. They were grocery store owners, and my mom worked at that grocery store. So the authorities assumed, before they knew about this helter-skelter nonsense, that the murders were employees, because apparently employees didn't like the LaBiancas. They weren't the best of bosses. So they interviewed them. So they interviewed my mom. Well, we left not too long after that, and we started heading back across the country. And when we were in, I want to say Arizona, we picked up some hitchhikers and gave them some rides through Arizona, New Mexico, and over towards Texas. And I thought they were girls. Turns out they were guys. They're just guys with long hair, hippies. I didn't know better. I was a small kid. One of the people we gave a ride to, was hitchhiking, was Tex Watson. You ever heard of Tex Watson? Yeah, he was the one that was from Texas, and he was extradited back to California to face trial for the Manson murders. Yeah, so there you go. We later lived in, is it Memphis? Is that where, I always confuse them because it's not Nashville. I think it's Memphis, which is where Graceland is at, and where Elvis Presley lived. And we lived in a trailer park, and while we lived in that trailer park, folks, thanks, Ross and Jax. Yeah, my mom was a Sinatra kind of chick, no doubt about it. She did it her way. If she'd have known Sinatra, she probably would have hooked up with him. But we moved to Memphis, and we were living in a trailer park then. And my father was doing contract work for Elvis Presley on Graceland. And so as a little kid, I got to run around Graceland. I met Elvis, and that's why it hit me so hard when Elvis died a few years later. And then my parents split for whatever reason. I don't know why. I was too small to remember. Disappeared. My father took off with us, and I didn't see my mother again for a while. Next time I saw my mother was some time after that, but my father got custody of us in a landmark court case in the early 1970s, in which a father got custody for one of the first times. Both my parents told lies about each other. They got family members to lie about the other one, and the judge decided that my father got custody, which was landmark. So I got custody of the three of us. I was the eldest, my sister, my brother. And then, sorry, I'm rubbing my neck because I've got this pain running up through here. Yeah, Elvis is still the king. He rocks, man. He rocks. My father got custody, and then one of the deals was he wasn't allowed to take us out of the state. So, but then my father, for whatever reason, decided to move us to Buffalo, New York. We moved to Buffalo, New York. My mother couldn't find us. She must have reported to the authorities. We moved there. We were just there for a few months. I went to a public school in which all the students in my class spoke Spanish. They were Puerto Ricans, I think, except me. I was the only white kid that didn't speak Spanish in the class. So during class, the teachers would speak Spanish, and then after class, during recess and breaks, everyone would speak Spanish. They wouldn't speak to me. So it's like, that's not cool. So it's kind of weird. And then I remember that Christmas that year, it was so much snow. Unbelievable. Never seen so much snow in my life as I saw in Buffalo, New York. And I got that Evel Knievel wind-up dial. You crank it, you ride the Evel Knievel motorcycle, and it jumps, and he's made of rubber. It was big Evel Knievel times. And I got a few other cool presents. There was a knock on the door when I came home from school. My sister and I came home and knock on the door. And I look out the peephole, and I said, yes. And they said, yeah, we're with, I'm from social services, and they're for the police. And I said, can I see some identification? I must have been 9 years old. Does that sound right? About 9 years old, I think it was. Must have been like 1973, 8 years old, something like that. My sister would have been 6 or something like that, or 5. And so they showed identification. A social worker, an FBI agent, a police officer came into the house, and they said, well, we're going to take you to a hospital where you'll see a doctor. I said, what about my brother? It's okay. He's been picked up from daycare, and you'll see your brother at the hospital. I said, what about my father? Well, they'll explain that to you later. So they took us to the hospital where we were checked for physical and sexual abuse, which was really creepy and weird for a young kid. And then I saw my brother. Then the social worker took us to a foster family in upstate New York somewhere. I have no idea where they were. I just remember they were wonderful people. We spent, I think, a few months with them, as I recall. The time gets kind of blurry. And then I got my first airplane ride. And my first airplane ride was from Buffalo, New York to National Airport, which is now Reagan National. That's the place where the Air Florida plane crashed. And so many years later. So we flew down, and that was back in the day when the airlines would give you those metal wings and they treated kids on a plane like you were kings. It was awesome. And so it was my first plane flight ever. And I flew from Buffalo, New York as a ward of the state, along with my two siblings. We landed at at National Airport in D.C. And then from there, they took us by car to Anne Arundel County, Maryland, which is where we're from originally, Anne Arundel County. And we went there and they put us in another foster home. And this was out in, it seemed like the countryside. But today I know that it was actually not that far from town. It's just that there were no roads. The roads were sand. They hadn't paved the roads back then. And of course, that part of Maryland is all was covered by glaciers and was part of the Chesapeake Bay estuary at one time until the waters receded and then it became dry land. So there's a lot, the soil isn't soil. It's not topsoil, it's sand. And so, we were at a place where all the roads were sand. And so we were actually just a few miles from Friendship Airport, which is today Baltimore Washington Airport. Thank you, Dolph Macopa. Thank you so much, Devald. Appreciate it, guys. So we were at this airport and and we were not too far from it. It seemed like so far because it took like a half hour to get anywhere, 45 minutes. But today I realized it's only about 5 miles away. It's just that there weren't any proper roads. So we were staying with this foster family. This is clearly one of those foster families that took kids in just to get the money from the state. We ate bean soup every day. I'm not embellishing, folks. It was bean soup every day. The people paid no attention to us. We could have run loose in the woods, been eaten by wolves. They wouldn't have known about it. They wouldn't have cared. And then for the first time in several months, I saw my mom. My mom came to see us. She was allowed to visit us there several times. We saw her. She wasn't allowed to take us anywhere, but we saw her at that foster home. And she felt really bad that we were there. Then I was taken to Annapolis for the court case. This was the subsequent court case. I hadn't seen my father now in several months because of the foster homes, and I'd seen my mother, but just briefly after not seeing her for months. We were at the courthouse, and then my siblings weren't there because they were too young. I was supposed to testify as to what I knew. My uncles and aunts, many of them showed up for the court case. They were in the courtroom. I didn't see that because when I was brought in, I sat outside. The judge determined that the court case was too salacious and that I would not testify. I didn't know that, but I was there to testify, to be asked to answer his questions. So that's the court case in which I was sitting in the hallway. And you talk about insensitive to a child. I see my father being brought down the hallway in a prison jumpsuit with ankles, braces, and handcuffs, and he's shuffling down the hallway. It's the first time I've seen my father in months, and he's being brought in like a criminal because he kidnapped us. But of course, they don't tell you that, and all you see is an image of your father, as a prisoner. And so that wasn't too cool. And so we went into the court. They held the case. I don't know. I was never in the courtroom. My uncle and others told me what was said. But one of my uncles, Larry, who was a cab driver and had a stable life at that time, he didn't have a very stable life altogether. You saw him in the picture there earlier. But Larry, in that case, had a stable time. He was married by Aunt Pat, whom I just saw recently. She lives down the Eastern Shore. She's still a treasure. Anyway, she's an Italian lady. But he was married to Pat, and they had a daughter named Lori, who's my cousin, who I saw for the first time in decades just last year. It was brilliant to see her as well. She's down there in the Eastern Shore as well. And my uncle, they were going to award us to the state. The judge was about to make a decision. He said he's going to put us in care, and they were going to separate all three of us. That's a death sentence for sibling unity, is when the state divides children and puts them in different foster care, and you don't see your brothers and sisters. You may never see them again. That's a really tragic thing. My uncle, bless his heart, stood up and said, "Your Honor, can I address the court?" And he said, "Yep." He said, "Listen, my name is Larry Golden, and I'm Margaret's, my mother's maiden name her name is Margaret, but she went by Arlene. I'm Margaret's brother. I'm employed. I'm a cab driver. I have a steady income, and I have a large house in Pasadena. My wife is here with me. We have a daughter, their cousin, and I can take all three of those children and I can foster them if you'll allow that to happen." And so the judge decided that, I don't know if they didn't do background checks, obviously, back then. So the judge said yes, and he awarded custody of myself, my sister, and my brother to my uncle, Uncle Larry. So bless his heart, I'll never, ever, ever forget what he did. Otherwise, who knows what would have happened. He might have wound up in a foster home, abused, beaten, murdered, drugs. Who knows what would have happened. Foster care is not a very good thing in many cases. We might have wound up in foster care in Baltimore. You never know. But my uncle took us in. And so we spent the whole summer with my uncle and my cousin Lori. We used to have fun playing out in the back. Had a good time. It was a great experience. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience there. My mother came by and visited a couple times. By now, she was living in Pennsylvania, and she had gotten remarried. And one day she came down, and we took off and went with her to Scranton, Pennsylvania. Technically, I think my mom kidnapped us, but my father either didn't say anything or wasn't around or was still in jail. I don't know what his story was, but I didn't see my father again from that court case in 19, was it 73 or 74? It must have been somewhere around there. Maybe it's 74. I think it was, yeah, I didn't see him again until 1994. So for 20 years, I just thought he was dead. I didn't know he was around. So my mother took us to Scranton, Pennsylvania, where I met my new stepfather, who I'd already met. He'd visited a few times, John Nicholson. He's still alive. He's living. I need to let him know that she's passed too. And so we lived in Scranton, Pennsylvania. We were there for a few years. In 78, my mother picked up and left with us in the middle of the night with all 5 siblings now. I had a half-brother, Robbie, Rob Nicholson, who's from my stepfather, and then my sister, Jennifer. And the 5 of us, she took off with the 5 kids, and we went to Ohio. We had a place of our own. We lived in a trailer in Fairfield County, in Thornville, near Thornville, in Ohio, and then we moved over to join Fred Bennett, who became my next stepfather. But we were living in this trailer, and we moved out of there, and less than a week later, a week after we moved out, a tornado came through, and it hit the spot in the field where this and like 3 or 4 other trailers were. It picked them up, and it threw them like a mile away, 1.6 kilometers, and they were all torn in pieces. Nobody was living in any of them. They were all empty. But a week prior, we had been living there, and a week later, that was in a field. If we'd still been living there, we'd all be dead, no doubt about it. So, we got lucky there. So we moved over with my stepfather, my new stepfather, Fred. They eventually got married, and then we moved from, that was on Oakthorpe Road in Fairfield County. And from there, we left there at some point and moved down to Perry County, and that's where I went to high school at and graduated in 1982. And I was the eldest. And so my mom did things her own way, and, she lived her own life. I tried for years to convince her to stop smoking, but smoking's an evil habit, folks. People pick it up in their youth. They just can't let go of it. I'm astounded, and I guess we're very fortunate that my mom lived to be 75. She just had her birthday in August because, she had cancer in her 30s, and she had breast cancer, and then she had ovarian cancer, and she survived that. She had 5 kids, and she survived that. And then didn't get a recurrence of the cancer for 30 years, even though she continued to smoke quite a bit. It's pretty crazy, folks. But she got to 75 years, and so we should be grateful for that. And my sister, I'll be eternally grateful for her for the other day for calling me when it looked really bad, about 2 or 3 days ago now. And my mom couldn't talk at the time, but she could still respond, and she was holding my sister's hand. And basically, it was an end-of-life call. It was very emotional. Was difficult, but anyway, so so I thanked her for my life. Whatever you think of your parents, folks, if they hadn't been knocking boots, you wouldn't be here. Think about that. And if they hadn't been knocking boots, wherever they were at whatever time they were doing it, you wouldn't be here. When that sperm met that egg, that was that moment in time, and you're the consequence of it. Right or wrong, good or bad, that's how you got created. And that's why you're on this planet. So if you enjoy your existence for even a microsecond of your life on this planet, you should thank the 2 people who got together and did whatever it is they did their business, and you're here as a consequence of it. So I thank my mother for my life. I thank her for bringing me into this world. I thank her for taking care of me as best she could. Wasn't always enough, but she did her best. Anyway, so there you go. Well, folks, thanks for all the very kind words here. Thank you. It is sad. Yeah, but my mom was suffering. She was suffering there at the end. So, yeah, really suffering. Well, let me run through the photographs once again, because a lot of people tune in after the fact, folks. If you're just tuning in, sorry for being a little bit emotional. This is a tribute to my mom, who passed away just over an hour ago. So I apologize. I don't have a lot of photographs on this computer because it's my newest computer. I have more photographs on another one, so I rushed to put this together after my sister told me she had passed. So I'm just going to run through some photographs, and if you've seen these already, my apologies. Don't run off. It's still interesting. So here you go, folks. That's my mom when she was young in high school. And just like me, she always looked a lot younger than her age, I mean, take away the beard, folks. I don't look this old. Yeah, so that's my mom in high school. Yeah. She had that curly hair, as Erica waved. I mean, I didn't realize that until just now. My whole life, 55 years, never realized that she had that curly hair too, because she's mostly had straight hair most of my life. So Anyway, so that was my mom in high school. That's my mother and my father before I was born, if I'm not mistaken. That's in one of those photo booths. You know, you go up and you shut the curtain, you drop a quarter or a buck or whatever in, you take a photo. Yeah, that's my mother and my father. Yeah, my mom, she had a good look about her. Yep, kind of that girl look from back in the 60s. That's my parents in July 1966. This one's a little bit out of sequence, folks. Thank you, Donna. Elizabeth, thank you so much. Nigel, thank you. So this is, look at that. My mom was tall. She was 6 feet tall, folks. I'm 6'2". So fortunately, I was taller than my mom, but she was tall. And that's her in 1966. Look at how slender and skinny, what a twig she was. And that's my father. Father wasn't all that tall. My mother is leaning on the car. My father is pretty much standing up straight. And of course, he has a damn cigarette in his hand. My father smoked cigarettes for years too. He lived to 84, so he got more years out of his life than my mom did. But he smoked up until about the age of 60 when he finally quit. But my mom continued to smoke her entire life. So, yeah, thanks, Rose. Thank you very much. Wow. Yeah, long legs, Elizabeth. And I've got those long legs. Same here. It's rough on a flight, folks. It's rough on a flight. Mom had long legs. So there's my mother with me, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. There's a sneak peek of Chris as a young child. At least that's what I've always been told this photograph is. It's not dated. Looking at my mom's build and her stature there, it would seem to make the case that in fact is me. Yep. Garrett says that's all one could ask for. It doesn't have to be perfect. Parent just needs to be there, willing to love you and take notice and support you. Yep, she always did love. She always did love. Wasn't always there, but did love, and that's what matters. Yeah, Jax, my mom does remind people of Twiggy. That's just reminding me of a lot of my life, folks. And so there's my mom and I. There I am making an appearance in a onesie, it looks like, in November of 1966 in Birmingham, Alabama. We went to visit my paternal grandfather, Owen Truman Wyatt. The only time I ever met him. He had his own aircraft, folks, and I remember that. I remember flying. I wasn't even 2 years old. How do you remember something like that? I don't remember anything else except this trip from that stage of my life. Yeah, it was pretty wild. Look at the big hair there. She's got big hair. Sometimes Mom had red hair, blonde hair. She liked to dye her hair. And this is my favorite all-time photo. That's not the best. This is a scan of it because I didn't have the original, so I scanned this. But that's my mom in the 1970s. That's probably about 1976 or 77. So she's in her about 30 years old there, I'd say. Yeah, 30 years old, yeah. I love this photo because it shows how she was determined, how she was. Look at that serious look in her face. This is one of those roadside rest stops where we'd offer free refreshments to truckers, and she's got a jacket on with all those badges and things from CB clubs. My mom was big into CB radio and truckers, and I had my own call sign, the Baltimore Kid back then. Yeah, she could be tough, Elizabeth. Yep, she was something else. So just hard to believe she's passed now. There's my mother when she married my second stepfather, Fred Bennett. I'd say that's probably about 1979. It might have been 80. They tend to get married a lot. I don't know what that was all about. Every year they want to get married again. They got married all over that thing. They want to get married in 50 states. I always thought, well, that's just crazy. I mean, it's going to make it hard to get divorced in 50 states. But yeah, that's my mom. Look at that tiny waist. Yeah, but at this stage, she had 5 kids already. Look at that tiny waist. Real Susie Quattro look. Yeah, that's a good point, Keith. I hadn't thought about that. Yep. Thank you, Martin. I appreciate that. Thank you all for tuning in, folks. Just trying to do a tribute for my mom, something to be a kind of a lasting legacy. I'll download this video later on. Yeah, so here she is driving a truck. Look at them legs, folks, man. Cowboy boots, got the jean jacket on. I think it's a jean jacket. Yeah, it's my mom driving a truck. Look at how ancient that truck is. Today, that just would not pass muster. That's in the 70s as well, folks. That's back in the 1970s. That's Margaret Arlene Golden Nicholson Bennett. Yep, that's her. Yep, her maiden name was Golden. Yep. And here is my aunts and uncles. This is from 1999. This photo was taken, and a number of them have passed now, including Tommy in the front, Larry in the back, my mom, and Melvin have all passed on, so they're no longer around. Yep. There you go. So, yep, there you go. That's my mom right dead center there with the sunglasses on. Got the rocking the Roy Orbison look. She's also looking off to the side. Everybody else is looking straight ahead. She's looking off to the side. I don't know what that's all about, folks. That's an odd one. So my stream wasn't up to date. Let me get... So that's my mom in the 1999. So that's 9. And then number 10 here. I'll show you this one again. That was her birthday in August of this year. And she's got a Pelosi for Prison T-shirt on. In case you're paying attention to keep me score at home, my mom was wearing a Pelosi for Prison shirt so, in August of 2020. Yeah, there you go, folks. She did vote in November, and she did vote for Donald Trump. So just in case you're wondering. Well, thanks, Be Smart. That's my sister Jennifer on the left, and that's my brother Brian on the right there. Excuse me. Yeah, yeah. So there you go. Yeah, I definitely got that hair. So yeah, that's in November. And then this last photograph I'm going to show you guys is the last photograph of my mom and I together. This was in November of 2019. Went up to Ohio to visit my mom. Obviously, you can see no beard. This is right after I got out of the Army. Just retired from the Army. Been out for barely over a month. That's my sister Jennifer, my mom. You can see she's kind of bent in the knee there. You can see her knees bent because she's about 4 inches shorter than me. She's actually was just 2 inches shorter than me, but she's kind of bent in the knees, and her stature is already drooping a bit because she's, with age, people tend to get a bit shorter. Their spine compresses. So, yeah, but that's my sister Jennifer. It's my mom. That's me. It's my nephew Denver. He was nearly as tall as me. That was in last year, folks. I went up there to see her. So there you go. Anyway, so yeah, Andre says, okay, thank you very much. Andre Van Eden. Gosh, there are people commenting here I've never seen. I'm going to guess some of you folks have been lurking on the channel for a long time. You just don't join the stream. But thank you all so much for your thoughts and condolences. I really appreciate it. It's very kind of you. Very kind of you, especially for those who never contribute to the chat and you're just deciding to do it to send your condolences. Thank you so much for that. So I've lost my father 2 years ago and now my mother this year, today, actually. So, yeah, life is fleeting, folks. Don't let people steal your joy from you. Don't live your life with regrets. Don't say, I wish I'd done this. Don't say, if only. I'll do this later. Now, if you have the means, do things when you can. If you're young and you're like, well, I don't know, I'm going to wait to have kids. Don't wait to have kids unless there's an absolutely good reason for it. I'm not telling people who are young to rush out and have kids, but, don't go, I'll have kids later, because you may not be able to have kids later. If it's important to you, do it now. If it's important for you to travel the world, travel the world. Just be frugal. You don't have to have billions of dollars to travel the world and see it. I've seen the world, and I did most of it very inexpensively. I never delayed any of my travel my entire life because I know that life is fleeting. I've served in combat, and I've seen friends and comrades not come back. I've seen people be murdered. It's not the actual murder, but the aftermath of it. Life is fleeting. You should grab the bull by the horns and just grab on and go for it. I know people say that all the time. It sounds kind of trite. My mom lived her life. I don't think she had any regrets. The one regret I have is that I really wanted her to come to Germany. Stationed in Germany 3 times. Tried to get her to come over. Could never get her to come over. And frankly, in her latter years, I did see my mother, but not as frequently as I'd like to, because she smoked incessantly, and it was very difficult for me to breathe when I visited her home. So we'd usually go and see her, see her in a restaurant or at my sister's place or something like that, because the cigarette smoke I just couldn't stand. I just couldn't breathe. Yeah, so yeah, it was interesting when I went to see my mother a few weeks ago in the hospital in Lancaster, and she woke up. She goes, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, I came to see you." She said, "You're not up here to go to a sports game?" I said, "No, I came to see you." "Why'd you come to see me?" I said, "Well, I heard you're in the hospital. Figured I'd come see you." So yeah, spent about 3 days with her. So a good part of 3 days in a row up there, and then drove back from Ohio. Yeah, so you folks, do what you should do. Don't let people dissuade you from following your dreams, following your passion. A friend of mine in the Army back in the 1990s told me he was getting out of the Army as a captain to go walk across America. Everyone else said he was crazy. I said, no, man. I said, you do what you want to do. I mean, unless you're Shirley MacLaine or a Buddhist that believes in reincarnation, as far as I know, you get one shot at this life. And if you don't enjoy it, you don't make the most of it, if you're miserable doing something, then that's unfortunate. You're wasting your life. We live in a country in which you don't have to settle. You can dream, you can aspire, you can do other things. And so my friend got out and he decided to walk across America. He went to Georgia and he started walking across Georgia, and he did it for a few days. And he's like, this sucks. So he gave up on his plan. When people found out that he gave up, they said, see, I told you it was stupid. And I said, no, man, you wanted to do it. You gave it a shot. You decided it wasn't for you and it didn't work. That's your call. And last time I talked to him, he's working for the CIA. He did all kinds of things. He went to Chile for a year and learned Spanish because he had relatives in Chile. He's been living his life. He got married later in life. He's got kids. He's enjoying his life, and he's doing the things he wanted to do, and never saying no for the things he wanted to do. And that's what people should do. I have never not gone to a place I wanted to go in life. I wanted to go to Iceland before I was 40. I pulled it off. I wanted to go to New Zealand. I finally got there. It took a while, but I finally got to New Zealand. I have been everywhere I really want to go and see in this world, except perhaps Australia, Alaska, and I would say the only other place that really interests me is Argentina or Chile. And you should do it. I've been to sporting events the world over. I've learned 6 languages, including my mother tongue. I'm not boasting, folks. I'm just saying that I've done all this and I'm not a wealthy man. I did that inexpensively. I traveled the country carrying my microwave with me to cook meals in hotels, finding bargain hotels. I've relied on coolers to put lunch meat in and bought bread to make sandwiches as I went along trips. I've gone without things and stayed in inexpensive places just to it. And when I had more resources, I stayed in nicer places. And I could go back to places. But I could never imagine waiting until I was 65 to decide to go climb Kilimanjaro. I did that earlier when I could still do it. In fact, I climbed Kilimanjaro. I didn't get to the top because I couldn't, because I just had surgery. I just had gallbladder surgery. The only time in my life I've ever been to the hospital, they removed my gallbladder after a flight from South Africa, and I was supposed to go to Tanzania, and I got to Tanzania, and now I had stitches and was recovering from surgery, and I was advised by my doctor not to climb Kilimanjaro because of oxygen and the altitude and all that. So what I did is I went to the park at the base, and I walked and hiked a few kilometers up the mountain at the lower altitudes and did what I could do, which was safe. And so I can say I've climbed Kilimanjaro. I've never gone to the summit, but I have climbed Kilimanjaro. Do those things when you can, folks. Life will pass you by otherwise. Would you be a wonderful travel buddy? Oh, you would be. Well, thank you, Dolce Vita. I think I'm a great travel buddy. People who've traveled with me say I'm pretty good. I have a great sense of history and geography. I pick the right places to go that are of interest, that people find interesting. I think I make a great tour guide, and I can do it in places I've never been just because I'm accustomed to what, finding the right things to do. So, well, thank you, Stevie. Appreciate the condolences. Jack says, agreed. Always create wonderful memories, Chris. One of the few things no one can ever. Yeah, that's right. They can take money away from you in taxes. They can try expropriation without compensation and take what belongs to you, but they cannot take your memories. And these days with digital cameras, folks, I mean, you make all the videos, all the images, you upload them to the cloud before some clown steals your phone, and at least you have them, and you can put them on other platforms and back them up. I have a hard drive that sits in a safe deposit box loaded up with photographs and videos on storable media. Every couple of years I go down, I pull it out, and I reload it, and I put on another device, and I make sure that one's still valuable, and I put it down there. And when we change technologies, I change technologies. So now I used to have these, the removable disc, then I upgraded to the thumb drives, and then now I have the portable hard drives that store a lot more just to save those things. There's also saved in the cloud. I have those images, so they're always there. You can find them somewhere. So yep, that's important stuff, folks. In fact, that reminds me, I was looking at my computer. I should have just gone onto my cloud account to look for pictures of my mom. Let me do that real quick while we're chatting here, and I'll see if I can't find some more pictures of my mom. I don't know if I have any there, but I will look and see what I find. So let me see if I can find a few more pictures of my mom. Thank you all for sharing this experience with me. No, I don't have a folder on there named after my mom. I wonder why. I thought I did. But you have your life. Donna says, we plan trips with our kids. My mom always says my husband and I should go alone, and we always said our kids aren't going to be with us forever, so have a ball traveling. Well, Donna, I think that's a healthy approach to it, because before you know it, they're gone. They're out of the house. And once you're out of the house, you're an empty nester. You can travel on your own anyway. I mean, there might be some trips you want them to take on your own, but I mean, why not take your kids most of the time? Exactly. Exactly. You should do that. Folks, I've done some pretty cool stuff. Nigel says, my eldest son is 42, is expecting his first child. Was wondering if she would ever grant me a grandchild. And not. Well, Nigel, bear in mind that it might not have been a question of her granting. It might have been a difficulty conceiving, and maybe they kept that from you because that's difficult. It's not easy for couples to tell expecting grandparents that they can't conceive children. Or they're having difficulty. Maybe that's what it was. So congratulations that you got a grandchild coming, Nigel. That's awesome to hear. You're going to be a granddad. That's cool. Still got home movies talking about
talking by my dad while in Belgium, Congo, all been digitized. There you go. There you go, Nigel. That's amazing. That's what you have to do, man. See, you have to take those 8mm movies, convert them to VHS or convert. Now you can digitize everything. Save those things. Also, folks, listen to this. Please listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. If you're listening now, please listen. Whatever your relationship with your parents or your grandparents, talk to them. Talk to them. Ask them about their life, where they grew up, their experiences. Write them down, record them. Make videos, make audios. If you don't, you'll regret it. Almost all of us are genealogists who get seriously into genealogy. Wait until it's too late. Wait, and in my case, it was because I was gone. I had a weird childhood. I wasn't around family so much, living in foster homes, moving from state to state. So those opportunities weren't there. And then I was off on my own life at the age of 17, at university at 17. So I didn't get the time and the chance to spend asking my grandparents. By the time I was old enough to even think about this stuff, many of my grandparents had already passed. My grandmother's still alive, and she was getting Alzheimer's at that stage. So if you have a chance, if your parents are lucid, if your grandparents are lucid, ask them about their life. Listen, everybody's life is worth knowing about. Everybody, even people you don't like. Julius Malema is a jackass, but I'm sure there's things about his life that are interesting to learn about his growing up and his experiences. So everyone has something interesting. We all have a story to tell. We all have a story to tell. Some are more interesting than others, but we all have a story to tell. And you should learn those stories. You should learn those stories. The thing I really wish I'd been able to learn from my grandmother is about her childhood, growing up in the poverty she grew up in, living in Baltimore, and the situations she went through growing up, my grandmother. But I never had that chance. If you have that chance, do it. Please do that. Well, thank you, Chris Abramsey. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you. La Dolce Vita. Never forget when Arlene joined our live stream early in the year. Yeah, wasn't that cool? That's right, she did. She did. Oh, gosh, which one was that now? I don't remember which one that was. If anybody remembers when she came in, let me know. Let me know. I know that that we did the trucker show together. That was pretty cool. Yep. 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 Elizabeth says, my cousin in the U.S. did a family tree, and we could find out very interesting and weird things. Yeah, very interesting. You can learn weird things about genealogy, folks. I mean, I've told the story before about my great-grandfather, about how he never divorced my great-grandmother on my paternal side. And so Maurice Ellsworth Grimes died in Washington, D.C. in 1933. He was a florist. He was still married to my grandmother, or great-grandmother, excuse me, who was living in Baltimore, but she hated him for whatever reason. And so apparently when he died, the authorities in D.C. rang her up in Baltimore and said, okay, your husband has passed away. And they said, what do you want us to do with his body, his remains? And she said, well, you can cremate him, just dump his ashes in the bay. I hate the son of a bitch. I didn't know this story until I started doing genealogy. Of course, I wasn't even born when this happened, but my great-grandparents apparently didn't get along. So my grandmother, my father's mother, so on my paternal side, my grandmother loved her father and cherished her father. And so when he died, she was devastated. When she found out that her mother told the District of Columbia to cremate him and dump his ashes in the bay, which they wouldn't have done, they would have cremated him, she was upset. So my grandmother filed suit against the District of Columbia and against my great-grandmother to stop them from cremating her father so she could have his remains. It was a front-page news story in the Washington Post in 1933, folks. In the midst of the Depression, it was a front-page news story. Not to be rude, but I crap you not. It's a true story. My uncle told me about it, and I was astounded. So I looked it up, and sure enough, in the Washington Post, I found it, and it was one of those under their archives, and you get like the title and the first two sentences, and you have to pay. I paid the $2 to get the article, and I downloaded it, and I read it. It was astounding. And then was another story. It went on for about 6 weeks. They kept my great-grandfather on a block of ice in the morgue in Washington, D.C. Eventually, my grandmother won the case. She took her father to Frederick County, Maryland. She buried him. I didn't know the story. I'd been to the graveyard there in Ladiesburg, to the church many times, and I'd seen his gravestone, and I didn't know the story behind it. Had it not been for my grandmother, there would be no gravesite there, and he would not be buried in the ground there. So, yeah, Erica, lots of skeletons in the cupboard. Interesting to find those things out. Julia says, so sorry. Thank you so much. Donna says, my grandfather's 95, and we always enjoy his stories, even when World War II. What a life he's lived. He saw first television, calls, the internet. Yeah, Donna, I hope that you guys are recording that, capturing it on video. I mean, come on, nobody has an excuse. You don't have to go out and buy one of those expensive cameras. Sit there, put a tripod down, and just, where's my tripod at? It's not here. Right? Put a tripod down and just record them. Listen to what they got to say. Get the stories. future generations will appreciate what you did, and you'll appreciate what you did capturing the stories. I'm so glad that your grandfather's still around 95. All my grandparents are long past, they would be past, this stage, they'd all be past 95. Good Lord. Yeah, my grandma was born 1920, so she would have been 100 if she were alive today. Yep, and then other grandparents born before that and around that time, so they've all passed. And now both my parents have passed. One of my stepfathers is gone, but my other stepfather's still alive, so he's still out there. He lives in New Jersey. That's John Nicholson. He's a good guy. So I've seen him a few times in past years. I need to let him know that my mother passed as well, but I'm sure that perhaps my brother already found out. So anyway, yeah, folks, you got to grab life by the horns. You just got to do what you got to do there. Lazan says both sets of grandparents died before I was born, except my dad's father, who died taking me to the park when I was 4. Oh my goodness. And at 35, I've lost both my parents as well. Luckily, I asked a lot of questions. Well, good for you, Lazan. Yeah, but you guys are building your own life now, so you'll build some memories. And if you're going to have kids, I don't know if you do or if you're going to, but then that's something you can pass on. Nigel said, an American lady about 4 years ago phoned me and had found my half-brother and sister who live in Australia, made contact with them. One day I'll share the story with you on Zoom because of family. That'd be awesome, Nigel. We could do a family stream sometime on the channel. Just listened to Huckabee, both his interview with his daughter about her book. She was Trump's press secretary interview with a focus on the family, heartwarming father-daughter. Yeah, no, Mike Huckabee is quite a great guy. You know, he's a priest. He's a priest. He's a preacher and former governor of Arkansas, ran for president. He's a great guy. He's a gem of a guy. A little trouble controlling his weight over the years, but he's a good guy. Boom Shakalaka says, crazy. My great-great-granddad used to walk 6 kilometers to visit my dad every week. He was 97, looked like Clint Eastwood. He did not want to drive or get picked up. He hated technology. That's awesome, Boom Shakalaka. Yeah, Clint Eastwood got that raw look, you know. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's great to hear people living so long, 95. My plans are to be a centenarian, folks. I plan to live well past 100. Although right now with this, whatever this pain is, whether it's an ear infection or it's a toothache, whichever it is, I don't feel like I'm going to make it to 100 right now. It hurts a lot. So, yeah, I felt better a few hours ago. I took some aspirin, but yeah, I can't take any more now because I don't want to damage my liver. I have to wait a little bit longer. So took some Tylenol, acetaminophen. There you go. Stuff does the trick pretty well. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining me in this stream. I really appreciate you all joining me to share this with me. It's a tribute to my mom. And I was able to do this because I have a channel now, and it's very kind of you all to listen. No one's obliged to listen, so it's very kind of you to listen. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation, and I really do appreciate it. Yeah, so it'll probably be a tough week for my sister here, so I have to give her a call in the morning sometime, see how she's doing. Yeah, so stress. What kind of stress, Erica? What's the question mark there? I don't follow. Yeah, so it'll be tough for my sister. It's really been hard on her. She's the youngest. I say the youngest, but so she's 42 now. So Spirit of 76. I love that username. That username. That's right. We are fans of liberty here on Chris White Africa. Anyway, so yeah, it does take a while. It does take a while, but yeah. So anyway. Yeah, it's and by the way, so I got a nasty comment by somebody on my Botswana Namibia video again. I answered some of those last night, found it very irritating, so I responded. And somebody called me out and said, "Well, you're calling somebody stupid." And I don't think I said somebody was stupid. I asked if they're stupid. I mean, it was a sarcastic comment because they said something rude to me, and I said, you know. Anyway, so the guy wrote to me, and I said, "Look, I don't have time for you. You know, you take your insults elsewhere. My mother passed away 10 minutes ago." And then I posted that and left. Yeah, so I was out a few days traveling for work. Congrats on hitting 20,000. Oh yeah, that was a few days back. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. Yeah, 20,000. By the way, also hit 100,000 views for a video. I've had 100,000 views previously on a live stream. That was the Senate call. I've had 140,000 views on that. But the SEAL Team 6 video I did on October 31st hit 100,000 views last night. Now it's at 105,000 and climbing. A lot of people have tuned into that. So this is my first prepared video that hit 100,000. So we've hit 20,000 subscribers, 250 paying members. We've hit 100,000 on a prepared video, almost 150,000 on a live stream. Pretty cool stuff, folks. And the peak we've had is 5,700 on a concurrent views. But I really appreciate it, but we got a long ways to go. I've been in touch with Creado, folks. I told you guys about that. The president of Creado got back with me. Let me read a little bit of that message to you guys. Just Jansa says, thank you, Just, for those comments. But let me read this real quick to you guys, folks. This is awesome. I got this email earlier. Let me find this thing. It was earlier in the day. Let me go back and find it. He sent this to me. Here it is. He says, I won't read all of it to you because some of it's private. He said, thank you for reaching out. You're still at the top of our list, man. Since we last spoke, we never anticipated the China virus would shut down all funding for 9 months. And he said, so they've been readjusting their plan on when they're going to live, the funding they're getting in place. And they said that Hollywood's almost completely closed. The music industry is closed down, but things are showing signs of life now. And we feel we get some momentum happening sometime in the next week. He said, thank you for reaching out. Let's stay in touch over the next month, and I'll keep you abreast. Merry Christmas to you as well. So that was really kind of him. So Creado is still online, folks, and he asked me he thanked me for re-engaging with them. Let's see. He said one other thing here. Let me see. He said, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. So anyway, so that was from the Creado president. So they've still got me on the list, so I haven't been forgotten about there. I was just concerned maybe I've been forgotten about. So that's pretty cool that they reached back out to me. So that's an alternative network that's coming up, folks, and it's sponsored by conservatives and funded by conservatives. So it will not be censoring people's content. I don't mean disrespectful. Who is Margaret? Oh, you're not disrespectful at all, Kane. You're not disrespectful at all. That's a fair question. Margaret Arlene Golden Bennett was my mother. She passed away an hour and a half ago at the age of 75, and not from COVID-19. That wasn't at you, Kane. That was to the authorities. They better not write that down on her death certificate. She passed away from stage 4 metastatic lung cancer, which metastasized and spread throughout her body. And it finally got her after 2 years. She lived for 2 years with that cancer. She fought it for 2 years. She held it off. She used that Truvada, that drug they use for cancer. It worked for a long time. But this COVID shit and the piss poor medical care that people got as a consequence of my mother not getting all of her treatments, they changed her medication and the cancer spread. So, yeah, so fuck COVID. Sorry for that, folks. And all these freaking feckless government officials who screwed up our medical system and destroyed it. But thank you to the medical people who cared for my mother and took care of her, and to the folks who developed that life-saving drug, which extended her life. And she had good quality of life for most of that 2 years. So she got 2 more years out of life because of the cancer treatments that were developed here in the United States, in the greatest, freest country in the world, where creativity matters. And leftists are trying to crush that creativity and make us serfs. We don't need that. Anyway, but my mom got 2 more years. So, yeah, she's my mother who just passed away. Thank you, Kane. Yeah, that's my mom, Margaret Arlene. Went by Arlene, and not spelled the way most people spell Arlene. That's spelled Arline. That's not a typo, folks. My mother was called Arlene, and she spelled her name that way, and that's how it's spelled in her birth certificate. It wasn't. Most people spell Arlene Arlene. That's not how my mom spelled it. My grandmother and grandfather spelled it Arline. So Margaret Arlene Golden was my mother's maiden name, and she just passed away. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kane. That's what we've been doing. We celebrate my mom's life, and apologies for the profanity a moment ago. But I almost guarantee that they'll try to write that she passed away from COVID-19. She didn't have COVID-19. She was tested. She wouldn't have been admitted to the hospital. If she had it, she would have been in the COVID ward. She was not in the COVID ward. I say that now. This is a videographic evidentiary statement of fact. My mother did not have COVID-19. And if I find that on a death certificate for my mother, I will sue the authorities for their fraud, and I will sue the hospital for their fraud, because I know what's going on here. My mother did not pass away from COVID-19. She passed away from cancer. She passed away from cancer. And the cancer grew after she didn't get all of her care and treatment that she was getting normally as a consequence of this feckless nonsense that these officials have done. So if you want to count my mother's death as a consequence of COVID, you can, but you cannot attribute it to COVID. It may be a consequence because of the politicians and what they've done in this country. But my mother did not die from COVID. She died from cancer, and she fought it for 2 years. And she fought it in 1987, 1988. She succeeded. And 30 years later, it came back. And for 2 years, she held on, courtesy of life-saving medications developed in this country, the greatest country in the world, and great care that she got during that time frame. And she fought it. But in the end, the cancer won. So there you go. Yeah, thanks, Donna. It is. But I mean, I don't like using that word. It can be juvenile, but I just think it kind of shares the sentiment, folks. Chris, problem with my wife treatment here. The working conditions are disgusting. I'm with you, Nigel. I'm with you, and that's really sad to hear that. Anyway, folks, look, I don't want to drag it out and keep you all here. This isn't a pity party, and it wasn't meant to draw sympathy. That's not what this is about. You guys are like a family, and actually, there is family here. My sister was watching the stream earlier. So my sister Jennifer couldn't sleep. She didn't know why she couldn't sleep. She got up. She saw my stream was on. She was watching the stream earlier when I was broadcasting, and that's why she tried to call and let me know that my mother had passed because they called her in the middle of the stream. So when I say you guys are family, yeah, I have family that actually watched the stream. My mom was a devoted watcher. I guess I lose a subscriber there, YouTube. But my sister apparently is a viewer as well. I didn't realize that. My other sister, I think, watches, although she's politically batshit crazy on the other side of the political spectrum, although she claims to be a conservative Republican. She's not. And that's fine. She's entitled to that. But she apparently does watch the stream too. So, yeah. So, anyway, I just wanted to say, yeah. My mom born 47, so every day is a blessing when she answers the phone. You got it, Steve. You got it. So 2 years younger than my mom. She's 73 there. So yeah, it is. But anyway, so I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. That's what this was, just a tribute to my mom. She just passed. So I just want to do this. I figured I could hold it together. I think I've done a pretty good job holding it together. Obviously a little bit of emotion in my voice at this stage, but I did want to share with you all and let you know about it. Hey, Peter Crutchley, good to see you there. Just want to share with you all so you knew about it. And thank you all. So it was just a tribute. So anyway, appreciate it, guys. I'm going to close out the video here, and I'm just going to put that picture of my mom back up for a moment or two before I shut it down. So thanks a lot. I appreciate all your kind comments. I'll be back on the channel later today. I have a members perk stream in the evening where members only can chat, and I'll have an earlier stream. So thank you all. Hey, Carrie Funskalvik. Thank you so much. I lost my mom in November 2008, colon cancer. Oof. Wow. You never get over it. It's tough. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that, for sharing that, Carrie. I appreciate it. And folks, that's it. I'm going to close out here. It's an hour. I think that's a fitting tribute to my mom. She lived her life her way, including her cigarettes. She just wouldn't give them up. I remember telling her when I came back from Africa 5 years ago, I said, Mom, please stop. If you don't stop, you're going to be gone one day, and it's going to be because of the cigarettes or cancer, and we don't want to see that happen. She said, I'll stop. I'll try. But she never did. She tried at times, but never did. So anyway, but thank you, folks. Thank you for tuning in. God bless. Margaret Arlene Bennett, August 1945 to December 2020. God bless, Mom.